Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. I'm Andre, and in this video I'll be sharing a few tips and tricks of how to get organized, answering a few commonly asked questions regarding Ableton, especially for beginners, and also sharing one very important tip, how to deal with input latency when you're recording outboard gear. So yeah, let's get started. So first question, and a pretty common one, is where do you learn how to use Ableton? Like, how do you go about it? Like, what's the best approach to take? Do you read a book? Do you watch videos? Do you take a course? Like, what do you do? So surprisingly, or not, their website is actually a very, very good resource for learning how to use their DAW. So if you take a look at the website, if you go to the help section on top, they have like a series of videos to learn live. It's basically anything from overview to setup to interface to different instruments and effects, workflows, just a lot of really good tips. And also the videos are very straightforward and easy to digest. So highly recommend starting here, especially if you're just getting started and kind of like feel like you don't know what you're doing. So the help section is great in that regard. You can also search their articles or their knowledge base if you're looking for something specific. They also have a separate tutorial here of learning synthesis and learning music, which is pretty cool, and it's browser based, so you don't have to like install anything else. If you're a push user, they have a similar thing to the learn live video section that you can just click here and watch a bunch of videos of how to use push. Also really good resource. And then last but not least, here under the tutorials section, you find different tutorials from other people and on more kind of like niche topics, but also like a really good resource. Also, if you switch back to Ableton, here, if you go to help and then help view on top, it opens this section over here, which allows you to basically see everything that's new in Live 10, and it kind of like gives you a brief overview of all the different sections and tools, and you can just click through it and it just kind of like goes over all the instruments and effects and things that you can do. And what's nice about this, it's that it's within the DAW itself, so you can kind of like use it as a reference and then, you know, open a device here and then kind of like compare to like the settings, or kind of read about it as you're tweaking the parameters, which is really nice in my opinion. Another common question that people always ask is, how can I get live for free? So on their website, again, you can actually try Live Suite for free for 90 days, which is pretty amazing. Like, you get 3 months of the entire full featured DAW. Highly recommend to just give it a try and see if it's for you or not. Also, now is a really good time to buy because you can save 20% on the upgrade to Live 11, which comes out in probably a couple of months. Supposedly Q1 of 2021, so should be fairly soon. So obviously that's one way to try it, get like the 90 days demo. Another way, which is my recommended one, is to actually buy a MIDI controller, which most of them come with a free version of usually Live Lite, but it will give you a working DAW, which you can always upgrade to like a intro or standard or suite down the road, but you don't have to like pay extra to get the DAW. So my recommended one is the Akai MPK Mini. It's really good controller, and you probably need a MIDI controller if you're going to be using a DAW and making music, so it's kind of like goes hand in hand. So yeah, you can always just do that. Or sometimes people just give out free licenses if they buy a piece of gear that comes with like a free version of Lite, so you can always be on the lookout for that if you're like in different forums on Reddit or Discord. Another really common question that I see people asking is like, how do you export audio from Ableton, or how do you export MP3, which is pretty straightforward. It's the same way as you would export your project. just go to File, Export Audio and Video right here, or you can just do Shift Command R, keyboard shortcut. I'm a big fan. And then here you have all your options as far as exporting. So the top section is which track you want to be rendered. So obviously with the master, you're going to be rendering or outputting your entire project, or you can select like an individual section. So if you only want to do the drums, which I have here, then you would just select that. And then the markers is like the section you want to render. So if we switch back to the arrangement view, say you want to render just like this part right here, so you like select 16 to like 30 or something like that. As far as the rendering options down here, I've personally never used them, so I'm not really sure what each option does. If you're super interested, you can refer to the manual. Here you can select the file type. I always export a wave, and then the bit depth is always at 32. No other options, and then here is where you select MP3 if you want to also export an MP3 file. So if you have both of these on, then you click export, it will basically render the entire track, and then you'll have two files. One is wave and one is MP3. Another really common question is, how do you save or create templates in Ableton? As far as I know, you can only have one template, which is kind of disappointing, but you know, we got to work with what we have. So you can only have one template at any given time. I haven't found a way or like a workaround. So if you have one, please leave one in the comments, because that'll be super useful. But to create a template, you basically load whatever instruments or devices that you want to be like your default, right? So right now for me, it's just the drums here. So if I want to have this be my template, basically anytime I start a new project, this will automatically load. All you have to do is, after you have all your stuff set up, so go to Preferences, and then under the File Folder section here, on top you have Save Current Set as Default, and you just hit Save, and that's it. And then anytime you open a new project, this entire set will be loaded. So the way I use it is, I have two things set on my master at any given time. So I have the FabFilter Pro Q3 always loaded with like a low cut at 30 Hertz, because I know this is something I would apply or use on every single track that I make. So it's kind of like I load it by default. And then I also have the linear phase multiband by Waves. I always use this. It just elevates the track and gives us like a nice cohesive warmth and feeling. So it's something I always use on all my tracks. So it's just, these two are loaded by default. And then for the sends, I have all of my reverbs and all of my delays kind of like preloaded, and they're all turned off by default. But then, you know, if I wanted to try like a specific delay, I can just turn this on and then turn the send on my drums, and that will be activated. And you know, same goes, I can just, it's a nice and easy way to like quickly test different ones, because they're right there. So I don't have to like load and do anything with that. So that's nice. One more thing that I find super useful is that you can save audio and MIDI track defaults. So for example, if I open a new audio track, notice how it automatically loads with an EQ8, and the volume is set to -10 dB. Like, I didn't have to change any of that, which is super nice. And I want to EQ on every channel that I load, because it's just nice to have it there. And since it's off, like, it's not going to take too much processing power. So the way to do that is basically you tweak whatever you want to tweak, add whatever devices and effects that you want to always be loaded anytime you load a new audio track. And then once you're done that, just right click on the audio track at top and then click save as default audio track. And this will cause any new audio track to be loaded with all the devices that you set. So I have the same set for any MIDI track. So if I insert a MIDI track, you see the volume is at -10 and it loads with the EQ8 already there. One more thing that I find super important is to organize all your files and folders and kind of like know where everything is and have it to be like easily accessible. So the way I do it is using the Ableton's built-in collections option. So if you look up here in the top left corner, you have the collections and you can click edit and add up to 7 different collections. And you can obviously change the name of it. And then another thing is down here under places. This is where your user library and like all your downloaded packs live, but you can also add any custom library or folder. So you just click add folder and then the window pops up and then you can just select whatever folder you want. So if you have like some sample packs or some folders with different audio files that you want to like import and have easily accessible, you can just do it here. And then one last thing that I want to show is what I mentioned in the beginning of the video is how to deal with input latency when you're recording outboard gear. For me, it just was really annoying at first because I couldn't understand why there's always just a slight delay or like it's just not a perfect sync when I record audio in from like the TRAS, for example. And here I'll show you what I'm talking about. So here, if I load the TRAS and then an audio track, because I want to record the audio from TRAS. And important here that when you select the from, you want it to be coming directly from the input of your audio interface and not from what you loaded here. So like you don't select this because this will add an additional latency. You don't want that. Instead, do like external input and then select TRAS. So cool. Now that we have that, set the monitor to in and then arm it and then see what happens. Okay. So notice how here there's like all of this delay. Like it's not starting on the downbeat. Like it's just off, right? And I figured out that's because I'm like actively monitoring in, and that's what's causing the extra latency here. So now notice if I turn the monitor to off, I will still hear it because it's playing on this channel, right? But when on the channel that I'm recording the audio in, you want the monitor to be set to off. So set this to off, and then now I have to switch the output to be my audio interface. Right now I have it set to like multi-output, so you can hear in your speakers what I'm hearing on my computer. So let me switch it really quick. You won't be able to hear the audio, but you'll see the difference in how the wave looks like when I'm recording. Okay, so check this out. You see, it's right like on the money. Like it's just couldn't be any more perfect than that. Look at that. And if we look back at the previous recording when the monitor was set to in, it's completely off. So now even if I play it, here, let me switch it back so you can hear it too. With the metronome on, look how this sounds. Completely off. And this one, right So yeah, this is like a very, seems like a simple thing, but I feel like a lot of people don't know that. I didn't know that for a while, and actually my buddy reached out to me for some help, and we kind of like figured it out together. So yeah, if you're recording like any external audio, like instruments like guitars or any outboard synthesizers and whatnot, make sure you have two channels. One channel where you're actually hearing it back, and the one that where you're recording the audio, make sure your monitor is set to off. That will eliminate any latency that you might have. And in case that it's still a little off, you can always go to preferences, and under audio, try and play around with the driver error compensation. I personally never found this to be working like the way I see it in my mind. Like lowering the latency here would like lower the latency. It's a little complex from what I found, but you know, you might have a better luck. But yeah, hopefully this was helpful. If you like this type of content, please consider subscribing, hit the like button, leave me a comment what you learned, or if you have any cool tips that are seemingly obvious but for some reason goes under people's radars. And yeah, hope you have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.